to start answering your questions in what would I do if I were you? I had a submission that was sent in to me this week, and I wanted to walk through specifically their situation and then also kind of how I would assess it based on the goals that they presented me. So this is a 29-year-old married individual. She is a PT trainer / student, and her husband is an attorney. They're in California currently, going to move to Texas in 2023. They have 0 children. They have $4,000 in cash on hand. They have $18,000 in retirement assets. They have $75,000 in cars and stocks. And then they also have $35,000 in credit card and student loans. They make $160,000 including bonus. They have $9,500 in take-home pay per month. Their expenses total $5,250. That's between rent, bills, chiropractic visits, Hulu, ButcherBox, supplement bills, and groceries. Their debts, like I said, are $35,000. That's $26,000 in credit cards at 23% interest rate. That's gonna be a focal point that we have to pay attention to. And then $9,000 in student loans at 6% that obviously are on pause until June of 2023. So July 1st, let's say, they're back in action. So based on the goals that they presented me, which I'm gonna share in a second, I'm gonna walk you through the steps that I would kind of consider when I'm assessing the situation, kind of what I would do. And again, this is not financial advice or investment advice. This is just what I would do in my situation. So their top 4 goals are to pay off credit cards, to save for a house down payment, to pay off student loans, and also open and max 2 Roth IRAs and an HSA. So let's walk through my thought process exactly how I would attack this. So the first and obvious one is to make sure you're current on your bills. A lot of people will start to skip this step and they won't be caught up in their current bills, but they'll use credit to then therefore fund a lifestyle they can't afford, and then the credit eventually comes crashing down on them. So we want to make sure we're at least current on our bills, which we are in this situation. We're totally fine there. Now, secondly, I want to look at 1 month to 2 months of expenses in cash within a checking account or something simple like that. Just to have a base ready for you, which in this situation they already do. So we're going to skip that step as well. So the next step is when I want to assess, should we save for an emergency fund or should we pay off this high interest debt? There's 2 ways of thinking. Obviously, you could pay everything to the high interest debt and nothing to the emergency fund. You could do a combo approach, or you could just do all emergency fund, wait till that's done, and then attack the credit card debt. However, in this situation, with the 2 jobs that are presented with the income, it seems like they're in good careers. There's a pretty good stable condition here with the situation. I would really approach this high interest debt ASAP. And so I think I would keep my cash right where it's at right now and take all of the extra money and throw it directly to the high interest debt. As you can see from the budget on the screen, you know that they have the take home minus expenses, and they have an extra $4,250 free cash flow to then apply towards their goals. So based on my structure, how I'm thinking through things, I would take that $4,250 and apply it towards the credit card interest debt ASAP. That's a 23% rate at $26,000. We need that to be priority, and that needs to be gone as soon as possible. And if we do that, as you can see on the screen, that takes about 6 months. Now, that's not the only debt we have. Remember, the student loans as well. And so we want to knock those off, especially at 6% plus. And so therefore, we're going to take that $4,250 plus the old minimum payment of the credit card and apply that to the student debt. In month 6 as well, we didn't use all $4,250, so the additional number would go to month 6 of the student loans. And then in month 7, as you can see, it's totally paid off. So that process is going to take 7 months, which is a no-brainer. Let's absolutely eliminate this stuff in 7 months, and then let's move on to the next step. So the next step would be to save for the emergency fund. This is a no-brainer step as well. We want to make sure we're fully funded. Obviously, we have cash, we have no bad debt. Now we need to bulk our savings up in case the worst of the worst happens, which it will. It just matters when. And so in this situation, in the last month, we didn't use all of our money. There was an extra $1,800 or so that can go towards our emergency fund in month 7. Then we need to understand where our cash position is at that point in time, and we need to add to it to make sure we have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses in our emergency fund itself. And so for me in this situation, I would assess, anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 is kind of the 3 to 6 month mark. I think $20,000 is a really good mark. I think on the lower end, based on their 2 careers, are really well paying, pretty stable, they're both young, they have degrees, things are gonna go well for them long term hopefully. And so I think 20,000 is a pretty good in-between mark of where I would sit on an emergency fund. And so based on the cash that we had, 4,000 plus the 1,883 specifically, we now have $5,883 on hand, we need to get to $20,000. Our deficit is $14,117. If we take the free cash flow that we now have available from paying off our debt, plus the additional variance in between expenses and income, we have $5,542 a month to work with. Therefore, if you divide that by the remaining cash that we need, that's only 2.5 months. So in between getting our debts paid off and fully funding our emergency fund, this should only take 9.5 months. This is less than a year's time, and this should be the focal point to get your foundation set, so now we can build upon that after this. And since you guys are moving to Texas in 2023, which I wasn't provided a date, so I'm hoping it's kind of more so the middle to the end, we want to make sure when we move there, I would not be saving for the down payment for a house right then. And I know that's going to be a plot twist, and that's probably not what you're expecting to hear today, but I would be renting a home in Texas, and a few reasons. You need to focus on what's more important right now, which is the high interest debt and saving for emergency fund before we buy a house. That's not the step we're on. And it's likely that you guys don't know the area that well unless you have family there, you travel there quite often. So moving across the country is a big step, and you want to understand where you're headed and kind of understanding the landscape. It's not a bad idea to rent for a year or two while you're saving for your down payment for your house that you actually want to stay in long term. My brother has been renting. He went to Miami, he went to DC, he went to Harrodsburg, Pennsylvania, he went to Chicago, and he was always on assignment for his job. And so therefore he never actually bought a home. And I think that's perfectly reasonable when you're staying somewhere for such a short time period, or you just don't know the area that well. So I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear, but it's the right one. In our next step, before we even save for this down payment, I want to set up your retirement funding between the IRA, 401ks, and HSA even maybe, to make sure that we're saving at least 15% of your gross income. And so $160,000 times 15% is $24,000 a year. Divide that by 12, that's $2,000 a month, as you see on the screen with the retirement specifically listed. So if you take your initial cash flow and then you remove out the portion that's going to now be going to investments of $2,000, you have $2,250 to work with. And so now comes the fun part. We have $2,250 to work with. We've set up our emergency fund. We've paid off all of our bad debt, and we're investing for retirement. So you guys being 29 years old are gonna be totally fine for retirement plus some. And now we wanna assess how much house do we need. So I'm gonna use an example. You can use my framework and apply it to whatever actual number you guys use, but I'm gonna assume a $400,000 home and 10% down. So based on that number, that means we need $40,000 for a down payment. Let's just say we have $2,250 to work with per month on free cash flow. That's gonna take approximately 18 months. So the other thing I'm not considering here is obviously increase in income, side hustle income, other discretionary income I just don't know about. And obviously that process could speed up quite a bit, but the proper way to do this is to set yourself up for the long haul, not to rush into a home. Honestly, right now, with the market dropping, I think there's a lot of correction happening in the real estate market. It might benefit you, especially Texas, because I just moved there and bought a house. So let's think about this the long-term way, in the right way. And I hope this recap kind of helps you think through step by step of how I'd approach this. This is the problem that most people are gonna have. They're gonna wanna jump into the house right away across the country. They're gonna end up in a house that isn't exactly what they expected, or there's other things they weren't considering because now they actually live there and they think about things differently. And then they also have the credit card debt, and they never can keep up, and that keeps mounting up at a high 23% interest rate, and people never can get ahead. And the biggest reason for this is instead of it being a need, it's a want. And so the house is not a need. You guys can find housing there for sure at a really, really cheap price, renting for just a year or two, and get yourself on the right track. And then being so young, find the house that you want, move in the right way, even maybe save up 20%, whatever that may be. And fundamentally, you'll be set up for life because you won't be working backwards against compound interest. You'll be working with it over the long haul. So I hope this kind of helps you guys break the situation down. Again, guys, make sure you subscribe to my page below by hitting the big red subscribe button, and I will be doing more videos like this on a weekly basis. So I hope to see you guys around. If you guys have questions about specifically what we went over today, leave a question in the question mark box below, and I will take care of it and answer all those questions as soon as possible. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.